Shepherd. I'm a social historian, as some of you know. And right now, I'm the director of the Center for Reparation Research at the University of the West Indies. And it is my pleasure to welcome all of you who at such short notice have joined us today for this conversation with Dr. Gina Paige. Before I introduce her, let me thank co-organizer Professor Rosalie Hamilton and all her colleagues at the Institute of Law and Economics, as well as the staff of the Center for Reparation Research and Ms. Nicole Taylor for making this happen. Professor Hamilton has long wanted to have this conversation and to take it even further to a full-scale seminar sometimes down the road. And when she joins us later, she will talk about that. But right now, let me say a big welcome on all our behalf to Dr. Gina Paige. And I want to tell you a little bit about her before she speaks to us about how to go about finding out our connection to, specific African ethnic groups and countries through African Ancestry, Inc. Dr. Paige holds a BA in economics from Stanford University and an MBA from the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business. She was honored with an honorary Doctor of Philosophy from Global Overday Seminary University in Germany. In 2003, she co-founded African Ancestry, Inc., and in doing so, pioneered a new way of tracing African lineages using genetics and a new marketplace for people of African descent looking to more accurately and reliably trace their roots. Along with her business partner, Dr. Rick Kittles, she has worked with anthropologists, scientists, and historians to collect DNA from Africans living on the continent who belong to the populations that contributed to the transatlantic trade in enslaved Africans. So we thank her so much for taking time from her very busy schedule to be with us today. We apologize for the late start, but you know how these things go. So Dr. Paige will speak to us for about 20 minutes, after which we will have a comment from our co-organizer, and then the floor will be open for your questions. So welcome again, and I give the floor to Dr. Paige. Perhaps you could unmute your mic, Dr. Paige?
That would make this go a lot more smoothly.
That's right.
Everyone, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to have this conversation with you today. Of course, we admire the work that you're doing in Jamaica and on behalf of Black people around the world. And so I feel like we are part of the same tribe in that respect. So thank you very much. So do you just want me to talk, or are we going to do a Q&A?
Yes, no, you will just give your 15 to 20 minutes, and then we will open the floor.
Okay, all right. Well, so, the way that we look at the work that we do is often like a puzzle. Imagine doing a puzzle that has 500 pieces. You spend all this time working on the puzzle, it's taken over the kitchen table or wherever you're doing it, only to get to the end and find that there's one piece missing. There's this little bit of one tiny part of the puzzle that you just can't find anywhere. And that, to me, symbolizes our experience as people of African descent. We have all of this information about who we are in our current homes, but when we try and get to the root of who we are, there's a missing piece. And that's because, in my opinion, we're the original victims of identity theft. When we were taken from the shores of West and Central Africa and brought to the Americas and to Jamaica and to other Caribbean countries, and even Europe in some respect, we lost everything that identifies who we are. Think about it. We lost our names. We lost our languages. We lost the freedom to honor our ancestors. And millions of us lost our lives. But on top of that, those who didn't, those from who we descend, those who were survivors, our families were torn apart. Mothers and fathers were sold apart. Children were sold from their parents, brothers and sisters. It was just every part of who you are was disconnected. And that was intentional. That was the goal in order to make this business, this institution of slavery effective and profitable. And so if you don't know your name, you can't speak your language, you can't speak to your ancestors, you don't know who your family members are, then you cannot possibly know who you are, not fully. But there's one thing that we didn't lose in that disconnection, and that's our DNA. And so these are amazing times where we have Black scientists who are researching African history through genetics. And that's what my business partner, Dr. Rick Kittles, began doing, now I have to do the math, over 30 years ago. And so that's our mission at African Ancestry. We've pioneered genetic ancestry tracing for Black people around the world so that you can know where your ancestors were specifically in Africa before Jamaica, before Cuba, before Alabama or New York or Brazil. We're committed to helping Black people transform the way we view ourselves and the way we view Africa. And so the way we do that, obviously, is through DNA. We will take your DNA, and I'll explain that science to you briefly. And then when we find African ancestry for your DNA, we give you the present day African country and ethnic group that you share ancestry with. One of the things that I want to make sure that I point out is that we've been doing this for 17 years. And in 17 years, we remain the only company in this industry worldwide that has a Black staff, that uses Black scientists, that partners with Black companies as much as possible, and that has Black suppliers as much as possible. So this isn't just about the identity for us, but as part of our company's identity, identity, we are committed to economic empowerment of those that work for us and those that work with us. And then most importantly, we remain the only company in this industry that does not sell or share any customer information, not personal information, not financial information, and not genetic information. So I wanted to kind of lay that foundation, lay that framework as I now tell you how this works. How is it that you all can even do this, Gina? You know, that's a question we get all the time. We have two tests. We have one test called the Matriclan Test, and that test traces maternal ancestry. By maternal ancestry, I mean you, your mother, her mother, her mother, her mother, all the way back 500 to 2,000 years. So if you think about a family reunion, and you have a family reunion and everybody at the reunion shares the same grandparents, we'd be looking at the line of one of the grandparents, your mother's 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 mother. We are able to isolate DNA that is only found on that branch of the tree. So my quick DNA lesson, you did not hear science in my bio. I am not the scientist on the team, but what I have figured out is how to explain this to eighth graders, 8-year-olds, all the way to 108-year-olds. So we each inherit 50% of our DNA from our mother and 50% from our father. So if your mother's yellow and your father's blue, then that means you're going to be green. So imagine everybody who's listening to me or watching me, you're green, but you have a little yellow dot. You have a little bit of DNA that you inherited from your mother that did not mix with anything you got from your father. All of the rest of the DNA mixed except for this one little part. That's called mitochondrial DNA. mitochondrial DNA is maternally inherited. You and your brothers and sisters got it from your mother. She and her brothers and sisters got it from your grandmother. She and her brothers and sisters got it from her mother and her mother and her mother all the way back. So what we do is we take that yellow dot and then we compare it to yellow dots from people all over the world. Because that DNA does not change, if I can find your yellow dot in someone else in the world, anywhere in the world, you have to share ancestry with that person. And so if you're looking for, we talked about this a little bit earlier, if you're looking to see if your maternal lineage was indigenous, Taino, then you want to compare your yellow dot to the yellow dot of as many Tainos as possible, right? You want the batch that you're being compared to be as big as possible, so you have the best chance of finding the Taino match. Well, the same holds true for African. If you're looking for African results, you want your DNA to be compared to the DNA from as many African people as possible. And so at AfricanAncestry.com, we have the largest database of indigenous African lineages, African yellow dots in the world. No other company comes close. The closest company has about 2,000 African lineages. We have 33,000 African lineages. And so our lineages represent people who live in present day countries in Africa, and they belong to present day ethnic groups. So, for example, we all know our new ancestor, Chadwick Boseman. He took our test. We unlocked the code of his yellow dot, and we compared it to all of the yellow dots in our database. We found identical matches among people living in Sierra Leone today who are Limba people. We didn't find identical matches among Hausa people or Mbundu people in Angola or Mandinka people in Senegal. We found identical matches in the Limba people living in Sierra Leone. Is this making sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So that's how we trace the ancestry of maternal lineages. Men and women can do it. And the best thing about this is that one person takes the test, but you've got the answer for everybody on the entire lineage, all your siblings, your children, your grandchildren, their children. Future generations will now come into the world with this sense of a rooted identity on the continent of Africa, as will your nieces and nephews, your brothers and sisters, your aunts and uncles, your cousins, your grandmother, everybody on that line. So now many of you are saying, okay, well, what about the father's side? The test that we offer for paternal ancestry is called the Matriclan Test. And that test traces the ancestry of father to father to father to father. So if we go back to our art lesson, remember I said the mother's yellow, the father's blue, so we're green. We all have a yellow dot that we got from our mother. Well, all the men listening and watching, you also have a blue dot. You have a little bit of DNA that you inherited from your father that doesn't mix with anything you got from your mother. So you have two dots, a yellow one and a blue dot. The blue dot is your Y chromosome. And if you remember anything from science in high school, it's that women have two X chromosomes, men have an X and a Y. The Y chromosome is what determines maleness. And so if we can take a man's blue dot and compare it to the blue dots from people all over the world, when we find a matching Y chromosome, we found someone with whom he shares a paternal genetic ancestry. So it works quite the same way, but the only difference is that women cannot trace paternal ancestry because we don't have Y chromosomes. We don't want them. We're fine without them. So if a woman wants to trace her paternal line, we need our father, our brother's son, an uncle, some male on the paternal line to take that test for us. So African Ancestry traces single branches of the family tree. We can trace any branch you want. We just have to figure out who's the right family member to take the test, and then which test should they take. So that's the science of it. You know, I believe that tracing ancestry is an ancestral imperative. We are living in these times. I don't have to define these times for anyone who's on this call. And we're experiencing, I'll speak specifically here in the United States, we're experiencing levels of racism and social injustice and negative economic impact that are unprecedented in our lifetimes. But this is not something new. The way we deal with this now can be very different if we understand who we are. If we understand that we exist on a continuum that we can trace even beyond ancient Kemet, but let's just start there. They gave us all the answers. They're written on the walls of the temples and the tombs. But we're not taught that. So we don't understand that we have this depth and this breadth of a foundation of knowledge and information of how to deal with current times. And then as those populations migrated out of Egypt and into West Africa, then we saw the rise of all these amazing empires, the Mali Empire, the Akan Empire, and the list goes on. We come from empires. But if you don't know that, then you think that you're just one person or part of a neighborhood that is being negatively impacted by forces beyond your control. What we do learn about is that next 400-year period, when we were forcibly removed from our homes on the continent of Africa, and we think that that's where we're from. Many people of African descent believe that that's what we descend from. And this work helps to educate and inform people that no, your history is not just 400 years old. Your history extends far beyond that. You come from people who've dealt with far worse situations than this, with an extreme amount of resilience and tenacity and success. And so that can inform what we do today. I also believe that tracing ancestry is an act of political resistance. The reason the system works so well is because we don't know who we are. That's how the system was built. It was built on the backs of Black people who were completely disconnected. What happens if we connect? Can you even imagine that? What would happen if we all had the power of knowing where exactly on the continent we come from, and then make that reconnection to the continent? That's a power and a force that is transformational beyond our wildest imaginations. And by tracing your ancestry, you put yourself, your family, your community, and the global Black diaspora or African diaspora on the path to empowerment. And so that's why we do the work that we do. We feel that it's critically important to know where you're from in order to know who you are. And all of our efforts are leading towards making that available, that level of knowledge available to every Black person who wants it.
I'm so fascinated. Thank you so much. Two things have just, stuck with me right now. It's an act of ancestral imperative. It's an ancestral imperative to do this. And also, it's an act of political resistance. if we make use of the possibility of that act and not just do the test and get our answers, but also connect with the people to whom we are related on the continent itself. I want to really thank you for that overview. The floor is now open to question, but I think before that, a representative of the Institute of Law and Economics would like to make a comment. Rosalie isn't here yet, so can I call on Judith Wedderburn? I know you're here, Judith.
Yes, thank you, Prof. Thank you so much. My apologies, I had some interconnectivity issues, but thankfully I'm here. I'd just like to say that we at ILE would like to thank you very much, Gina, for helping us to make this connection. Like Prof from ILE, I am very encouraged or empowered already by your describing this event, that tracing our ancestry is an imperative. I haven't heard it expressed that way in a long time, and it really impacts on me. And then when we talk about it as being an act of political resistance, that is even more resonates with me. Certainly the importance of finding out where we're from and turning these linkages into our collective empowerment towards the economic development and exchange of trade and all kinds of other resources that we know we can make happen. But without the linkages, it will be that much harder. So endorsing this on behalf of ILE, this initiative, and certainly can identify ways in which we can definitely work together and set up the framework. Thank you so much.
I'm not sure. Are you still there, Judith? I'm not sure if you were bounced off or if you're still there. Okay.
It's hard to tell, you know.
Oh, okay.
I'm still here. I just gave some introductory remarks on behalf of
right.
ILE.
Okay. Do you have a question then, since you have the floor? Do you have any question to start us off?
Well, because I had some interconnection issues at the beginning, did Gina already explain how one gets started? Just for anybody who is listening who really does not know how you get started, the first things you have to do.
Okay, so Gina, maybe you can explain that. You did say that if we want to trace on our mother's side, there's a test called the Matriclan. If we want to test for the father's side, you have to do the Patriclan. But I know you have something called a mixed clan, where one person can do the test and get some other information. So I was wondering if you could say something about the mixed clan, and also walk people through what they would have to do to connect with your company and actually get the test done and get the results.
Okay, sure. So the test that you're calling a mixed clan is a test that we offered many years ago that we no longer offer.
Oh, you don't offer it again? I see.
No,
okay.
We don't offer that, My DNA Mix. We offer the two tests. So the way to get started is to decide what information are you interested in. Do you want to know, maybe set up your family tree and you have 4 grandparents. So which one of those 4 grandparents are you interested in learning about? And then you decide, do you want to know about that grandparent's maternal lineage or that grandparent's paternal lineage? That would be step 2. Step 3 would then be based on, if you want to know about the maternal lineage, figure out, do I have that person's yellow dot? Is the grandparent my mother's line? If so, then you would get the Matriclan test. Do I have that blue dot? Is it my father's line, for example? If so, then you would get the Patriclan test. So it's deciding what information you're looking for, and then which test to take, and then who's the person to take the test. If everyone on the call today decides, I just want to get started now, I would recommend that you take the Matriclan test, and that would trace your mother's line. The reason I recommend the Matriclan test is because those results come back African 92% of the time. So out of 100 people that take that test, 92 of them are going to get an African result. 8 of them will not. It's going to either be indigenous or European or Asian or something else. When it's not African, we'll tell you which large group it's a part of, but we won't be able to get specific to an ethnic group or anything like that, or even a country sometimes.
You mean for the 8%?
For the 8%. Of the maternal line. Now, if you know that your mother is not a Black woman, or your grandmother, your grandmother is Chinese, or your grandmother is Pakistani or whatever, then you don't take a maternal test because you know the ancestry of that line. I can't make it African, even if she's part, even if, people say, well, my great grandmother was, they'll say here in the States, they'll say she was Indian, meaning Native American. Okay, well then don't take our test. If you believe she was Native American, then you already know her ancestry. You don't need a test for that. I would like to, though, I saw that there was a question in here, if I may. May I answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Andrea Ewert, I'm sure I butchered your name. And
that's okay.
Said that I did the test and just got the results. On my mother's side, I belong to the Fula people from Guinea-Bissau. Another test with another company said from Nigeria. Okay, and then wants me to make sense of these results. Well, I can't make sense of another company's results, but what I can tell you is that any other company, in fact, I would argue, Andrea, that your results probably didn't just say Nigeria. I would argue if you took a 23andMe test or an Ancestry.com test, that they gave you several regions in Africa, of which Nigeria was some portion. And we traced your maternal line. They looked at your entire genetic family tree. They didn't look at just one portion of your DNA. Secondly, we compared your DNA to 33,000 indigenous African lineages. They compared you to at most 2,000 African lineages. Thirdly, our database consists of data from 40 countries and about 400 ethnic groups. We have all of West and Central Africa included. Their database divided the continent of Africa into regions. So I would ask you to look, is Guinea-Bissau even a possibility on the test that you took? And I would argue that it is not if you took one of those two companies. So they gave you a macro look at your ancestry across your entire genetic family tree. We gave you a specific look of your maternal ancestry only on one branch of your family tree. Their answer of Nigeria, I mean, okay, so is it your mother's side or your father's side? Where in Nigeria? Nigeria has many cultures and traditions and values and practices and beliefs, as does Guinea-Bissau. But with your maternal ancestry, now you can explore those of the Fula people, and you don't have to accept a general regionalized identity. In fact, you didn't even need DNA to tell you that you're West African. So that's the best I can do to help you make sense of those results.
Okay, so somebody wants to, well, let me just jump in to say, I did mine as well. And the outfit I'm wearing is an indication of where you said I'm from. You said on the mother's side, we're connected to the Tikar people from Cameroon.
Yes.
Now, I always felt Nigerian. And what someone else said to me is that, remember that historically, Cameroon was a part of Nigeria. So you have explained that is the contemporary, is the present geographic location you are talking about. So even if Cameroon was a part of Nigeria before, you're using where the Tikar people live today, which is in modern day Cameroon. So I thank you for that. And I'm telling you that I feel extra proud. I walk taller, even though I'm short, because of this knowledge. And I hope one day to make that connection on the continent. I haven't yet been to Cameroon, but every Cameroonian person I meet now, I say brother or sister, and they understand.
Yes.
Now, there are some other questions on the chat, but so, I don't think you answered how you go about it. Do they just go to your site, choose?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, visit www.africanancestry.com, and there's a shop button there.
Okay, so they follow from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once they choose the test, everything is explained about the procedure. Can you say something about the procedure? You send a kit. How does it go? Break it down for us, please.
So when you order the test, you receive the kit by mail. Inside the kit, you will find an activation card, an instruction card, and 4 swabs and a return envelope. So it's a little different than when you took it, Prof. We've changed our process. We've improved our process. Okay. So once you get the kit, you open it up and you read the instructions. Please read the instructions. And then you just gently swab the inside of your cheek with the cheek swabs that are included. So there's no blood. It's painless. It's easy. You then go online and you activate your test kit. So you now can go in, add all of your information, your name, your address, your gender, your age, things like that. And then you are registered, you've registered your test kit in our system. You've done the swabbing, so now you put the swabs in the return envelope and you drop it in the mail. Now in Jamaica, you will have to put your own postage on there because we are not able to account for postage in other countries around the world. So you'd have to put the correct amount of Jamaican postage on the envelope. The swabs go directly to our lab. Our lab then takes the swabs out. There's no personal information. The people in the lab have no idea who you are. All they see is a barcode. You've put your name online. The people at the lab have no access to our online system. And then they basically unlock the code of the DNA, either your yellow dot or your blue dot. And then they upload the sequence to our system, where our science team takes over. They analyze your sequence against the African Lineage database. They determine first, is it African? Is it from somewhere else? And then if it's African, where exactly in Africa is it found? In the meantime, you can go in online, check the status of your swabs, were they received, where are they in the process? And then once the result is complete, we'll send you an email letting you know that we have your results. And right now, you will receive the results by email, but eventually you'll be able to log in and get the results online.
Okay. How long does the process take? From mailing, from signing up, getting the kit goes back, the scientific, whatever, the test is done, the lab work is done, and then to get it back? So
once you place an order, it usually is shipped within a day. All bets are off now in terms of how long it takes.
Right, that's true.
Get there.
This is a different time.
Once we get your swabs back, it takes approximately 8 to 10 weeks for us to determine a result. We're working on getting that time frame down now that we've launched the digital system, but right now it's about 8 to 10 weeks.
Okay. somebody asked about whether they can trace their female side by their father's mother doing the test.
Yes. Yes, and I actually recommend that for people who are interested in their father's side. When you do the blue dot, that comes back. Okay, let me take a step back. For the majority of the people who have taken our test have been in the United States. Okay, we have a significant portion of our customer base that is Jamaican, but the vast majority is American. All right, so for those people, the paternal results only come back African 65% of the time.
For Jamaica or for the US?
For the United States.
Okay.
For African Ancestry tests in general, but it's skewed by Americans.
Okay.
And only 65% come back African, 35% of the time is European. And that's not a surprise because white men were fathering children with enslaved women at extremely high rates. And so if a Portuguese slaveholder fathers a son with an enslaved Senegalese woman, the son is going to be Black and have Black sons who have Black sons, but his blue dot is going back to Portugal. Yeah. And so a lot of times people aren't interested in getting that information or don't even want to deal with the possibility of that information. So I suggest that on your father's side, do your grandmother. And so that's what the question was asking. Yes, and so yes, your grandmother could take the test. Your father could take the test. One of your aunts and uncles or uncles could take the test. Do your father's mother's on.
Okay. Well, we just had that result, that study, I think from 23andMe. I think if you look at Jamaica, if you look at the Caribbean, you'll find a higher percentage than that 65% for the US in terms of the European part of people's DNA on the
35. It's 35% of the paternal lineages are European. 35%.
35% for the United States.
For African Ancestry's customer base.
Okay.
But it's skewed American.
Yeah, but I think that there was much more sexual violence in the Caribbean by European men. So perhaps that would be Caribbean. But can we look in the chat and take a few more questions? I know there. Dwayne, can you guide us, please? Another question?
Sure. There's also somebody with a question. They've raised their hands. I think we missed that person.
Okay.
So yeah.
Hi, Dwayne and Verena. Can you hear
me?
Mariama?
Okay.
Yes, hi,
Mariama. Ask a question.
Hi, can I say something?
Yes.
Sorry. Good evening, Dr. Shepherd and Dr. Paige.
Where are you calling from? Where are you speaking?
I'm calling from Switzerland, Geneva, Switzerland.
Oh, wow. And we also have guests from Belize and Suriname. Welcome.
Okay, so I'm a board of director, one of the directors of ILE. So again, Judith has given you thank you, and I want to thank you. But I must say, I am so glad to meet you, Gina. It's so amazing and so wonderful to know that there is a company such as yours with Black scientists, and you're a Black woman heading up this company, and it's just really a true pleasure to have you on and to hear you and to hear and to learn the details of how this, because I've been very suspicious myself of this because I've never checked it out. And so it's my first time really understanding how it works and how you can actually trace it through. And so I want to thank you, and I'm very proud to see you and hear you. And I wish you and your company a lot of success. And I think we need to popularize this a lot more in terms of the two remarks that you made about it being a source of empowerment, a form of political resistance, and also a possibility for empowering the places from where we came, in terms of putting our resources, time, effort, money into those places so that we all as African can grow and prosper. So thank you so much, Gina.
And thank you. Thank you for joining us from Switzerland, a place where I don't know when I'll go back to Geneva for the UN work. Thank you so much. Dwayne, can you, who else's hand is up?
Not a hand at this point, but
Naticia Bohard Singers raised her hand.
Yes.
What's your question, Naticia?
Oh, they've muted me again. Very well.
No, you're here. We're here.
You're here.
Good morning, everyone. It's just a quick comment, Professor and guest speaker, just to say I am encouraged on the reparatory justice front to have such an initiative that would no doubt empower the work that we're doing towards repatriation. You know, as we embark on a fully funded resettlement program quest for people of African descent, it is certainly a means by which we can identify where we are from and to be able to settle when we get there in a very coordinated way. So I just want to thank you so much. I hope this expands towards a more unified force where us in the Caribbean could really organize and get involved in the work to put forward the message and to allow persons who are, what you would say, suspicious of what this repatriation thing would look like, to know that we are guided by DNA, we can identify local, and to move forward. So thank you so much for this work.
Thank you, Naticia. And Gina, I had a question about reparation as well, but my question was a little bit different from repatriation. I was saying that this will help us to have exact proof about our connection to Africa, because we didn't put ourselves over here. Our ancestors didn't walk across any land bridge or come on any cruise. So somebody made this happen. So I believe that once you have, because they are saying that there are no victims and there are no people who can claim because all those people are dead. But we are here and we have firm evidence through the test of our connection. So somebody is responsible for actually bringing us here. So to me, both the repatriation that Naticia spoke about and then the General Repatriatory Justice Project, I think, would be empowered by this. So thank you. Now, somebody said, how do you protect DNA data collected from Caribbean territories? Would you need a US address to be able to do this? But I think you have explained that already.
Yeah, you don't need a US address. There was one comment that I saw, which was, how are we protecting the indigenous populations that are part of our African lineage database? And all of that data in our database was collected anonymously. And so there is no, so they are protected because it's anonymous.
Okay. Can a parent do a test for their son under the age of 18?
Yes, so we do, you can, parental or guardian consent is required for children under 18.
Okay, but if that consent is obtained, then yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Milton Samuda from ILE. Thank you so much for being here. All right, now, Dr. Paige, not sure if the question has been answered before, but for Jamaica, is there a concentration as it relates to where in Africa the lineage dates back for? I think this is like, what have you found in terms of the major connection to Africa, the major country?
Yeah, so we don't have enough Jamaican data for African ancestry to really show trends, but I do know that based on research that my business partner, Dr. Rick Kittles, has done in the past, the DNA data supports what we hear, that Ghana has a significant, Ghanaian ancestry is significant among Jamaicans. That has not played itself out in our company research simply because our data set is too small. But in terms of the countries that we find the most often in general, they would be Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau, and Cameroon. Those would be the top four. But we have found data, we have found ancestry from 27 countries.
27 countries. Okay. I was expecting a different result, to be honest with you. When I did the one that showed different makeup, because you say I'm glad I did it when I did it, because at least I got the results of the mixture. But I've always been told I have ancestry, which is now different from what you told me. So I'm happy to have done it so that I have firm proof. Now, somebody said, "Hi, Gina, I've seen and listened to you on so many shows and programs talking about this product and service, like the Breakfast Club and Sister Circle. I'm so happy to finally meet you." That's from Shauna, I think. Shauna.
Thank you.
And then OBS, thanks for addressing the question, re-indigenous population. As a follow-up, how do you protect, well, I think you answered that already. How you protect the data. I think you said the people in the lab have no idea, you don't share, and so on.
And also, let me add that
yes.
All of the DNA is destroyed at the lab once a result is determined. So we are not collecting and we are not biobanking our customers' DNA.
Oh, so if I wanted to do something else, yeah, I'll have to sign up all over again.
Yeah. Unless if you ask us to biobank it, we can, but we do not do that as a course of business.
All right. Thanks for sharing that info, Gina. But have you found any connection with the fund and Benin for Jamaicans? This is for innovation. Yes.
No, we have not. But we, again, when you talk about Benin and Nigeria, so many of those lineages are shared.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions? I'm not seeing on my screen anymore.
No, I think you've covered them all.
You think I've covered them all? Okay. Are there any other questions? This is your last chance before we wrap up.
Hi,
would like
Judy,
to share what?
Judy.
Can I share something? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go. 1 second, Judith. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll share mine in the wrap.
Okay. All right.
So I'm very quick. I just wanted to know, when we go on your website, we'll see what the costs are.
Yeah, so the cost for one test is $299 US. And the thing to keep in mind is that, again, one test provides a result for many people in the family. And so you only need one person to take a test for everyone to share, everyone on that line to share in the results. We do, if you join our mailing list, we do offer specials from time to time. And we actually I was going to mention, so if I could just take this segue, we have just launched a campaign called Remember Who You Are. And it's in response to this Black Pride Renaissance that has, I think, erupted in a positive way around the world. And so as part of that, we are launching or hosting the first ever event of its kind. It's an online identity summit. And so from September 21st to September 26th, we're convening 20 speakers over 6 days to share the impact of psychology and history and economic empowerment and culture and travel on our identities. And as a part of that, we are offering a special on the test kits. So if you go to africanancestry.com/summit, you can see the summit and all the things attached to it. And it's free. It's a free virtual event. So I hope you'll all join us.
Yes, I've signed up and I've placed the information on my Facebook page. So people can look for Vereen Shepherd Facebook page with all the details. It's explained there. So in addition to going to your website, people on my Facebook page can also get that. Now,
can I answer,
yes.
Professor, can I answer another one of these questions?
Yes, because they're coming in now, so I've been trying to find. Yes, go ahead.
Can a female trace their lineage through their father's mother?
Yes.
No.
That's from Dalia.
A female cannot trace their lineage through their father's mother.
Because we don't have the Y chromosome, right?
No, because women can only trace their own mother.
Okay.
We can only trace our own mother. But if you want your father's mother, then your father can take the test. Your grandmother could take the test. One of your aunts or uncles could take the test, or one of your aunt's children could take the test. So we can't do it. We need another family member to do it. And
so
then
my brother had to do it because I can't do it for my father's side. So my brother did it.
Right. But we're talking, that's for your father's father. This question was about your father's mother.
Oh, okay. So what about my father?
Your father can do it for his
mother.
No,
so my father is dead. So my brother can't take the test to find out something?
Not for your father's mother. So if you want to know about your father's mother, you need your father or one of your aunts or uncles.
Okay.
Or one of your aunt's children.
Okay, I see. All right. If I wanted to do both the Matriclan and Patriclan tests as a Black male, would I have to pay for 2 separate tests?
Yes, those are 2 separate tests, but there is a discount when you purchase 2 at the same time. Or once you become an African Ancestry family member, you always have a discount on future tests.
All right. Have you found any corroboration with the assertion that the diaspora is mainly Hebrew and carry the E1B1A DNA? Well, that's very scientific for me.
Well, African paternal lineages do are part of haplogroup E, but we have not corroborated any connection to Hebrew ancestry.
So on our side, I think in Jamaica, for example, a lot of people claim to be descended from Lebanese or Jews. So I don't know if you have found Lebanese, Portuguese, Spanish.
Yeah, we find Portuguese on paternal lineages because again, you know, that happens a lot for the Y chromosome.
Spanish,
Portuguese, British, the Dutch.
Okay. Another question.
Sometimes Germany.
Okay, from Bermuda, how do I get my DNA sent here? This is very interesting, but I think you maybe.
Yeah, you just order the kit. We ship all over the world. So any place in the world that you live, that you're watching us from, we can send you a kit.
Okay.
But you will be responsible for the postage to return your swabs back to us.
Okay, and thanks Bermuda for joining. Carol wants to know, how stable is DNA? How do I know that the DNA of my initial African mother has not been modified in some way?
That's why we look at what's called mitochondrial DNA. Mitochondrial DNA does not change significantly over time. And so you have the same mitochondrial DNA as your foremother 2,000 years ago. All the rest of your DNA has changed, but not your Y chromosome and not the male, I'm sorry, not your mitochondrial DNA and not the male Y chromosome. Those do not change.
Okay, so I think we have one final, there are 2 questions that I can only take these 2 and then we have to wrap. Hi Gina, hold on, it's who?
There's one that I would like to answer that says, what is your opinion about Ancestry.com? What are the downsides that you may be aware of? And do African descendants need to be skeptical about taking it or the results? Here's what I'd like to say about that company and all the other companies like it that offer what's called autosomal testing. First of all, if you are taking that test because you're interested in the ancestry, in your African ancestry, those tests are not effective. They don't compare your DNA to enough African samples to give you a reasonable answer. So if you are interested in finding 5th or 6th cousins, if you are interested in finding health traits, then an autosomal test like the ones offered by 23andMe, Ancestry.com, etc. Those will answer those questions for you. But if you're looking for a present day African country connection, if you're looking for an ethnic group connection, then you aren't going to get that with those tests. The other thing I'll say is that they sell and share your genetic information. If you're okay with that, then, then that may be the test for you. But it's important that you read the fine print so that you know what exactly is being done. Ancestry.com was just purchased for $4.7 billion with a B dollars. And a significant portion of that valuation was based on the DNA that they've collected from their customers over the years. And then the last thing I'll say is, as an African descendant, they've done quite like what happened during the Berlin Conference. They've divided the continent of Africa into these large regions and then tell you that you share ancestry with some percentage of each region, which ultimately tells you that you're West African. I'll tell everyone that for free. Your ancestry is West African. You don't need DNA to answer that question. History has answered that for you. And so, again, if you want specific information as it relates to Africa, those tests will not give you that.
Okay. Actually, you can go to slavevoyages.org 2.0 to see shipping data, and that will pretty much tell them where it came from and in which country our ancestors were disembarked. All right, so this has to be oh gosh, these are interesting. There are two interesting ones. I have a question like Stephanie as well. The collection of the 33,000. How did you go about doing that? Was there any resistance? I mean, how did you get people to agree in Africa on the continent to collect their DNA?
So Dr. Kittles, that was a 10-year project by Dr. Kittles, and he collaborated with researchers across the continent. So, and in collaboration with historians and anthropologists to make sure that he was collecting data from populations who contributed to the transatlantic slave trade. And I think part of what made it also, there's some data in the public domain too, or from the public domain. But the other thing is that it was collected anonymously. So people weren't giving up their personal security by contributing their genetic material.
Will you continue to collect because you don't have the entire continent, or don't you need to? Because it's not just West Africa that our links are. It's also East Africa and Southern Africa. And Africa.
We continue to collect. I think that, that's a resource issue. It's about having the resources available to be able to collect from even more within the populations that we already have, as well as expanding our coverage of the continent. And so that's definitely something that we do periodically over time, and something that we would like to work with different African organizations within country to make that happen, because now technology is very different than it was 17 years ago. Now, if we had names and addresses or emails, we could make direct connections. So there's a lot, and people have become more comfortable, somewhat, Black people, with the idea of using their DNA for positive gain. And so there's a huge opportunity.
They're collecting it everywhere anyway. All right, finally, I think Carol, somebody had a question, I'm not sure who, it's disappeared now, but it's about predicting health outcomes. Can this more or less predict that African women in the Americas and Latin America, generally Caribbean, will be predisposed to certain illnesses? She's talking about fibroids. If you knew where your mother, the connection of your mother to Africa, are there health outcomes that can be predicted?
DNA can definitely be used to help predict health outcomes, and that is an area that we are actively researching, figuring out how we can play a role in helping Black people around the world, African people around the world, use their DNA to better understand their health, their physical well-being. You can't do it from the parts of the DNA that we collect. The part of the DNA we collect has nothing to do with your health. And it would require that we collect more of your DNA and that we research it. And that's not something we do right now, but it's definitely possible. We need the support and the trust of the community to participate with us to be able to do that.
Well, Dr. Paige, we have to close, but I just want to thank you so much. I don't know if Rosalie Hamilton is professor.
Yes, I am.
If you and Milton Samuda would like to make just quick closing comments.
Good. I certainly want to thank you, Vereen, for your mastery in pulling all of this together and to hosting it. And Dr. Paige, excellent presentation. Listen, you fed a lot of hungry people this morning. Finally, I'm going to do my test. I've been wanting to do it for so long, and I know a lot of persons on this call will do it, having listened to you and having been reassured about, you know, all the information you've given us. I think it's an important step for us in the diaspora in emancipation our minds, you know, knowing where we're coming from and creating that root. It's actually even influencing how we dress, as Vereen told you. You know, it does have impact on who we are, that sense of self-esteem. Importantly for us in the Institute of Law and Economics, it will help us on our path to economic emancipation. We are serious about the fact that it is time that we understand the role that we now must actively play to create an economy that we can control. And we need to find new markets, African markets, other people across the world, Chinese and so on, are doing it. And I think we need to do it. Africa is calling us. I think most of us in the diaspora are not aware of the constitutional arrangements that the African countries have put in place in the African Union. There's an African diaspora division that serves as a kind of focal point and hub for implementing African Union decisions. So Africans are inviting us to and encouraging us to be part of the building and development of African today. So I want to point to the fact that there's an embassy in Ghana. I must say, I just found that out recently myself, where, you know, this is housed and so on. Lots of exciting developments taking place. I want to just say to the audience that, listen, thank you so much for taking time to be here. I know that you all could have done other things and it was short notice. We will follow up this conversation. There's a South-South woman dialogue that's going to take place with us on September the 21st. So look out for that. And I want to lastly thank my colleagues at the Institute of Law and Economics, the CEO, Dwayne, and fellow directors for really being part of this effort to liberate our minds and ultimately to emancipate our economies. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you, Rosalie. I don't know if Matthew Samuda is still with us. Milton, sorry.
That's understandable, very.
Sorry.
But I tell you, I joined late, but I am just so happy that this has taken place. Rosie has said it all, but that sense of connectedness gets deepened by interventions and opportunities like this. And it is so important to the identity of Black people in the African diaspora. And securing it with science through an organization that is led and headed by a member of our family is just great. The truth of the matter is that we tend, I think, because of our orientation and interventions that have taken place in our history, to look towards North America, sometimes back towards Britain, but more and more towards North America for our economic salvation, ignoring the natural ties to a continent that is rich in history and opportunity. So anything that I think deepens that connection and takes us towards that future is something to be celebrated and supported. So really great and happy that the Institute of Law and Economics is a part of this.
All right. So thanks, everyone. I see Mina Israel from the Vice Chancellor's office. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks to our friends across the world for joining. Thanks to the staff of the Center for Reparation Research, Gabriel Hemmings, John, of course, John Shorter, and Floyd. Thanks to Dwayne, Floyd Williams. Thanks to Dwayne. Thanks to everyone. And please look out for other seminars hosted by the Center for Reparation Research. And a big thanks again to Dr. Paige. And
absolutely,
let us have a reveal show when everyone on this, you know, if you have not done it yet, do it. And let's have a big party reveal show online when that time comes. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a good rest of the day. Thank you, Dr. Paige.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.